I'm really sorry. It's okay. Take your time and tell me slowly. I gently spoke to my niece Olivia, who was on the verge of tears, trying to say something. Well, actually. Before saying anything, she pulled something out of her pocket and played an audio recording. What is this? I was shocked by what I heard and regretted my naivety. I never imagined it was such a sad situation. Such a painful situation. I cried at the enormity of it all, and then I resolved to do what needed to be done. My name is Charlotte. I am a professional working at an IT company. I hold a position and earn enough to live comfortably. Despite this, I live with my parents at their home. I had planned to live alone, but since my workplace is close to home and remote work is possible, I decided to contribute to the household expenses and live with them. My parents also preferred that I stay with them because they felt lonely with just the two of them. I have an older sister, Amelia, who is 2 years older than me. Amelia lived happily with her kind husband and daughter, Olivia, until 3 years ago when her husband passed away due to illness. At the funeral, seeing Amelia devastated, I said, "Amelia, why don't you come back to our parents' house until you feel better? You have Olivia to consider as well." "Charlotte, thank you for worrying about me. But I'm fine," Amelia replied, refusing to come back to our parents' house. At that time, I found it slightly suspicious that she was so determined not to come back, but since she had a strong personality, I thought she didn't want to rely on our parents. After that, Amelia worked hard as a single mother, balancing her job and raising Olivia. Of course, after her husband's death, her burden increased, and I made sure to stay in touch with her frequently. Amelia always reassured me that she had regained her strength and there was nothing to worry about, giving the same answer each time. However, despite our regular contact, she fell ill and passed away a year ago. My niece, Olivia, who was still in elementary school, came to live with us. When Olivia arrived at our home, she had a dark expression. I remembered her as a cheerful and lively girl when Amelia and her husband were alive. She was so full of energy. It must have been the shock of losing both parents in quick succession. Thinking about this, I wanted to help her regain her spirits as soon as possible. My parents often tried to talk to Olivia, but she remained unresponsive. Even when we tried to go out together on weekends, she didn't seem interested, and I didn't want to force her, so I didn't insist too much. Such a life continued, and about 3 months later, Olivia started to cry and apologized to me when my parents were not around. "Charlotte, I'm sorry."
What's wrong? Did something bad happen?
"No, it's not that. But I'm sorry." She had never cried before, so I was surprised. I couldn't hide my astonishment at how sudden it was. However, no matter how many times I asked Olivia for a reason, she wouldn't tell me anything. She just cried and apologized. But she didn't cry when my parents were around, which made me more and more suspicious. There was one more thing I was curious about. A few years ago, my parents suddenly started traveling frequently. Traveling is fine, but I didn't think they had enough savings, even though I was contributing to the household expenses. Sure, I gave them a bit extra when I got a bonus. Even so, combined with their social security, it shouldn't be that much. My father was a mid-level manager at a small company. Since he retired, he hasn't worked because I'm here to support them. As for my mother, she was always a housewife and never had a part-time job. She was bad at housework, so I ended up doing most of it.
Dad, Mom, it's fine to travel occasionally, but please save some money?
You don't have to tell us that. We do our shopping by carefully budgeting our money.
I worked hard for you all my life. And now I'm nearing the end of my life. Don't say such sad things. Then let us enjoy ourselves. Don't interfere with what we do. Fine, fine.
I half-jokingly suggested they save a little, but my parents wouldn't listen, saying they were nearing the end of their lives, and I was exasperated. Every time my parents went on a trip, Olivia seemed like she wanted to say something but never did. I thought it was better not to force her to talk until she was ready. A few months later, my father cheerfully spoke to me.
Oh, Charlotte.
What? What's up?
Mom and I are going on a week-long trip overseas soon. What? An overseas trip? Where's the money coming from? I just told you to save.
We came into a bit of money.
From where?
Does it matter? Just let us make some memories in our old age, okay? Mom's right. Let us create memories of having gone on an overseas trip.
Fine.
Even if they got some money, it was strange that they wouldn't say where it came from. I thought it was suspicious, but since it was their money, I didn't press further.
We're off then.
Make sure you take care of the house while we're gone. I will. Be careful and have a good trip. On the day of the trip, my parents left cheerfully, saying they would bring back souvenirs. After seeing them off at the door, I turned back to the living room and found Olivia standing there. She looked like she was about to cry and immediately looked down. Thinking that this couldn't go on, and being concerned for a while now, I decided to gently ask her for the reason. Olivia, what's wrong? My parents have left on their trip, so it's just the two of us now. You can talk to me about anything, okay? I'm sorry. As I gently asked, Olivia began to cry and apologize again. While I was wondering what to do. Charlotte, actually. Olivia said, taking a smartphone out of her pocket and pressing play on a voice recording app. The recorded sound was my parents yelling.
What is this?
No doubt about it, it was Dad and Mom's voices. But even though they would scold us, I had never heard them raise their voices like this. Since childhood, I had never heard them shout, so I was shocked.
Is this really my parents?
Yes. When Mom and Dad were still alive, they used to come to our house a lot. With that, Olivia began to tell her story. According to Olivia, my parents frequently visited Amelia and her husband before they passed away, persistently complaining. The content of their complaints was that they were against Amelia and her husband's marriage. They also made unreasonable demands for money, claiming it was for taking their daughter away. Hearing this, I was shocked to learn what kind of people my parents really were. Olivia continued, saying that they often threatened her mom and dad, demanding money under the pretense of coming to see their granddaughter. Whenever Grandpa and Grandma came, I always stayed in the bedroom. Probably because Amelia and her husband didn't want you to be scared. I think so too. But they were always shouting at Mom and Dad, and it was really terrifying. I see. That must have been tough. But how did you manage to record this? Well, Olivia explained that she had been given an old smartphone that Amelia and her husband no longer used as a toy, and she happened to have it with her, so she recorded the incident. If she was using it as a toy, she would have known how to use it to some extent. It was fortunate that she recorded this. Then, I asked something else that was on my mind. Hey Olivia, how often did Grandpa and Grandma come to your house? I think they came almost every week.
So, they were visiting Amelia and her husband that often without my knowledge.
But when I think back to what Olivia said, from when exactly? Every time I saw Amelia and her husband, they seemed more gaunt, rather than just slim. I had once asked Amelia if she was all right, and she told me she was on a diet with her husband because she had gained a little weight, so I believed her. But in reality, it wasn't that, it was probably because their lives were being made difficult by my parents. I regretted not probing deeper for the real reason.
If only I had noticed Amelia and her husband's distress sooner, this wouldn't have happened.
I'm sorry for hiding it all this time too. But I didn't know what Grandpa and Grandma would do if I told you, Charlotte. With that, she started crying again. Regretting my own ignorance, I hugged her. As I held her, I made a firm decision. From now on, I'll protect you, Olivia. You can rest easy.
But if you do that, who knows what they'll do to you, Charlotte?
Don't worry about me. I won't let those parents of mine beat me. Instead, I plan to get back at them. Will you help me, Olivia?
Yes. If I'm with you, Charlotte, I'm not scared. Let me help,
Olivia said with determined eyes. Nodding at her words, I decided to prepare various things in the week before my parents returned. Feeling reassured with Olivia's help, I asked her more about everything that had happened. I also remembered that Amelia and her husband were frugal and led a modest life. Amelia once told me they didn't like to spend extravagantly and rarely carried much cash. If that's the case, Amelia and her husband must have used bank transfers to give money to Dad and Mom. If so, there should be some trace left behind. I started to search the house thoroughly. There it is. As expected, they're sloppy. Finding the bank statement so easily means they were careless. I checked the contents of the bank statement I found while rummaging through the house. I confirmed the amounts that must have been transferred while Amelia and her husband were alive. They sent this much every month? No wonder Amelia and her husband lived such a frugal life. Clenching the bank statement in anger, I trembled. I took the bank statement to a legal support company. I asked them to investigate the connection between Amelia, her husband, and my parents that I was unaware of. A few days later, I was called to the legal support company. Here is the investigation report. The investigator handed me the report, and I began to read it.
No way!
According to the report, it was revealed that my BIL had borrowed money from a predatory lender to give to my parents. As a result, he became mentally distressed and eventually died from an illness. As I continued reading the report, my anger grew. It turned out that Amelia had worked herself to death, trying to repay the debt left by her deceased husband and to satisfy my parents' extortion. Moreover, Olivia had been subjected to my parents' taunts, being told things like, "You should be grateful to be here," when I wasn't around. Learning this made me burst into tears.
How horrible! I had no idea this was happening.
Additionally, our investigation revealed that your parents had even taken your BIL's insurance money.
No way!
I looked at the additional report handed to me. It confirmed that my parents had indeed taken my BIL's insurance money. They must have used that money for their frequent travels. I thanked the lawyer and went home. Before my parents returned from their overseas trip, Olivia and I devised a plan.
Do you think we can do it?
It'll be fine. We still have time, so let's practice a lot.
Yes. I'll do my best.
A few days later, Olivia and I were fully prepared, waiting for my parents to return. We had set up several cameras in the house to record both video and audio as evidence. Of course, this was done with the lawyer's advice and approval, so there was no problem.
We're home.
Welcome back. Did you have a good time? Yes, it was wonderful. Where's Olivia? We bought a lot of souvenirs.
Olivia is in her room doing homework. You must be tired from the trip, so why don't you relax for a bit?
You're right. Can I get a coffee? All right, I'll get it for you. Should I do it?
It's okay. I'll make Dad's coffee.
Okay,
I understand.
My parents returned home looking satisfied. It was their first overseas trip, so they must have had a great time. I listened to their stories about the trip for a while. Oh, sorry. I got a call from work, so I have to step out.
At this hour?
It happens sometimes. I'll be back soon.
Be careful.
All right. Listening to my parents' stories, I felt it was a good time to pretend I had to go out for work. Of course, this was the signal for our plan. After leaving the house, I called Olivia. Hello, Olivia? I've left the house.
Got it.
Olivia, keeping the call connected, went to my parents.
Welcome back. Olivia. We bought a lot of souvenirs for you. Thank you, but I need to talk to you. What is it? Speak up.
In response to my father's words, Olivia played the recording she had shared with me.
Where did you get that? Olivia, be a good girl and hand that over.
My parents showed surprise and panic at the recorded voice.
I'm going to let Charlotte hear this. Olivia, please don't do that. If you do that, you know what will happen, don't you? But I don't think this is right. We took you in when you had no one. You should be grateful and do as we say. Yes, and because we took you in, we receive government support money. Then, why are you kind to Charlotte?
Both my parents, in a fit of rage, insulted Olivia. Olivia, on the verge of tears, continued in a trembling voice.
We're only kind to her because she provides for us. That's right. We live off Social Security alone, so we have no money. And if Charlotte weren't here, who would take care of the house?
Exactly.
If we keep her here and treat her kindly, she'll always give us money when needed.
She's a convenient tool.
No way!
Hearing my parents' true feelings, I couldn't bear to let Olivia endure any more fear. I decided to return home. My anger, combined with what they felt about me, reached its peak. I violently opened the front door and headed to the living room.
I heard everything!
I flung open the living room door with a loud noise and shouted,
Charlotte? When did you get here? What about work? That doesn't matter. What matters is I heard your true feelings. You think of me as just a source of money and a housekeeper. Of course. We're no longer working. How do you expect us to live on Social Security alone? That's right. We can't survive without relying on you.
My parents, without denying that they viewed me as a source of money and a housekeeper, brazenly admitted it and began to beg me for money. The thought of having stayed in this house for such parents made me feel nauseous.
If you really think that way, Dad and Mom, I won't be providing any more living expenses. And I'm taking Olivia and leaving this house, so don't ever contact us again. I won't allow that. What about our livelihood? I know that you were extorting money from Amelia and her husband. What did you say?
Olivia, could it be?
I'm sorry. I've already told everything to Charlotte.
That's right. We have all the evidence, so there's no use in denying it. I told Olivia to go get her belongings, and she obediently nodded and went back to her room to pack.
You're serious, Charlotte?
This is a joke, right? You won't abandon us, will you?
No, I'm abandoning you too. I never thought you two could be such horrible people.
After confirming that Olivia had packed her belongings, I extended my hand and we left the house. We moved to a hotel near my workplace, which I had arranged in advance. However, we didn't stay in the hotel for long and managed to secure a new place to live within a few days. A few days after Olivia and I left the house and began living in our new home, I received a phone call from the police.
What? Is that true?
The police informed me that my parents had been arrested for shoplifting. No way. I had only left the house a few days ago. There's no way the money I used to give them could have run out in such a short time. Besides, they had been receiving money from Amelia and her husband and were also getting government support for taking in Olivia. Thinking these thoughts, I reluctantly headed to the police station to bail them out. My parents, sitting quietly, muttered apologies. We're sorry.
We just gave in to temptation for a moment,
they said. I apologized to the police officer and took my parents back home. When we returned to the house, all utilities, electricity, gas, and water had been shut off due to non-payment. The place was a mess, with garbage and unnecessary items scattered everywhere and a terrible smell lingering in the air. Well, Mom was always bad at housekeeping and never did it properly. It's no wonder the house turned into such a state in just a few days.
Why is everything shut off? Did you really have no money? And what's with the state of this house? Of course we have no money. We were enjoying ourselves for our retirement. I can't manage the house. And my body doesn't move like it used to. When you took Olivia and left, the government support stopped coming in. My social security is too little. How are we supposed to live like this?
Dad's right. If you had continued sending money even after you left, we wouldn't have had to do those things. My parents were furious, blaming me for everything. I could only sigh at their words. This is all your own doing, isn't it? I told you many times to save money, didn't I? Who was it that went on week-long trips every few months despite my warnings?
Enough. That doesn't matter. Just give us money. You need to pay all the utility bills. Otherwise, we can't live in this house. And call a cleaning service for this house. We can't live in such a dirty place.
All my parents demanded was money. They ended up blaming everything on me. I felt nothing but exasperation beyond anger. Really, you can't admit your own faults. Fine, then.
What did you say? What do you want us to admit? If you can't see it, there's nothing more to be done. I'm cutting ties with you. This is your final notice. Don't contact me ever again.
With that, I left the house. A month later, the house, which was once my family home, was vacant. In fact, the house was purchased under my name. My parents had forgotten this after living there for so long. As soon as Olivia and I left, I sold the house, forcing my parents to move out. Once the situation settled down, I went around the neighborhood to apologize for any trouble caused. That's when I heard that loan sharks had been lurking around the house. My parents must have turned to them out of desperation. There were also rumors that an old couple in dirty clothes had been seen in the park. Afterward, I adopted Olivia as my own child. Now, we share a bond stronger than that of true family. Seeing her face gradually regain its natural brightness filled me with joy. I vowed to continue watching over her growth and to reassure Amelia and her husband.
You're just a useless leech, you know that?
While packing for my sister's wedding, my mother-in-law Emma spilled beer on me.
With no earnings of your own, attending a wedding on someone else's dime, you're like a thief.
She dumps all the household work on me, treating me like a housekeeper. I've endured it until now, but this treatment is just too much. Can't even manage household chores properly, yet you want to go to a wedding. How selfish of you. Smirking as he joins in, is my husband, Oliver. My name is Ava. a 32-year-old housewife. I met Oliver through friends and agreed to marry him on the condition that I quit my job to focus on household duties and live with his parents. Initially resistant to living together, I reluctantly agreed, thinking it would reduce the burden of rent if I quit my job. But soon after moving in, I realized this was a mistake.
Your soup is always too thick. Drinking this constantly would lead to high blood pressure.
I'm sorry. I thought I had made it thinner, but my in-laws never seem satisfied with my cooking. They always complain about my dishes, yet Emma never cooks.
If we get sick, it's your fault. I'm sorry, I'll be careful.
Even as I apologize, Oliver, sitting next to me, pretends not to notice. He never stands up for me. Emma regularly invites her friends over for tea parties.
Hurry up with the snacks. You're always so slow. Move it.
Serving snacks and making coffee are always my responsibilities. And so is washing and tidying up the mountains of dishes after they leave. When I talk to Oliver about it,
it's natural for a wife to help out when mom's having fun.
He's unresponsive.
Mom, why don't you get the trendy pastries from the station for tomorrow's tea party? That's a good idea, but the line there is always so long. Just have Ava do it. Right, Ava? Go line up early tomorrow and buy them.
With that, he leaves for work. I'm not just a housekeeper. My frustration keeps growing. It's infuriating that both Emma and Oliver treat me like a slave. On top of that, living on Oliver's salary and his parents' pension is barely manageable, yet they insist on expensive snacks and coffee for these tea parties. While they are harsh to me at home, Emma and Oliver maintain a good public image, leaving me with no one to understand my plight.
People say living with in-laws is tough, but your mother-in-law seems so kind.
I don't know how to respond to such comments. What I really want to say is,
I'm being harassed by my mother-in-law.
But I'm too scared to make a fuss and stay silent.
Your husband even greets us every morning.
Oliver only takes out the trash to maintain a good impression with the neighbors. I'm the one who gathers all the trash and prepares the bags at the entrance. He just carries them to the trash collection area.
He even helps with taking out the trash. What a cooperative husband you have. I'm envious.
Should I be grateful that at least my husband takes out the trash, unlike some men who don't do even that? He never clears the table after eating and leaves cups wherever he last used them. His habit of leaving clothes strewn about only adds to my endless chores. Despite being a housewife herself, Emma does no household work at all.
Bring the coffee before being asked. You're always so slow.
I'm swamped with chores from morning till night and can hardly keep up with my in-laws' coffee demands. Emma, who never lifts a finger herself, is quick to tell me what to do. And always finds something I haven't done to criticize.
Can't you do something about the water stains in the bathroom? You're supposed to clean before it gets dirty. It's embarrassing how incompetent my daughter-in-law is at household tasks.
Afraid of the consequences of talking back, I rarely do. Feeling obligated because I live here, I think it's my fault for not doing a good enough job at housework and constantly get berated for being an inadequate wife. I tell myself I need to do better. Even when going shopping, I have to ask for money in advance, and then return with the change and receipts. Since the receipts are always checked, I can't even buy things I like for myself.
I'm sorry. Could I have some money to buy socks?
I've been mending my socks, but now they're so worn out that there are holes in them.
For your socks, $1 should be enough, right?
When handed just $1, I felt like crying out of frustration. Back when I was single, I used to treat myself to clothes or drinks with friends. Now, I don't have any money to spend freely. My parents have passed away and I have no other relatives to turn to, so I thought I had no choice but to endure. A few days later, I received a wedding invitation from my sister, Sophia. After our parents died, we relied on each other. I desperately wanted to attend her important wedding. I begged Oliver and Emma, who were having their evening drink.
Please, let me go to my sister's wedding. A wedding? That'll cost money. Do you really have to go?
Emma seemed very reluctant. You don't need to go, right?
It's a waste of money.
Oliver was not on my side either. In this house, there's no one on my side.
Fine. Go if you want. I don't want our family to be spoken ill of because of your absence.
Emma reluctantly agreed.
Really, you're such a useless money eater. Mom is really kind, isn't she?
No matter what they said, I was glad to be allowed to go to the wedding. I immediately started packing my bag. While packing clothes, I felt someone behind me. Turning around, I saw Emma standing there. Then, she suddenly threw her beer on me.
What are you doing?
Emma, without hiding her displeasure, said,
Going to a wedding with someone else's money, you're like a thief.
She was still angry about me going to the wedding. I do housework every day and never waste money. I had wanted to attend friends' weddings, but had always declined. Is it so wrong to want to attend my only sibling's wedding?
I'm sick of even looking at you. Just leave and never come back.
I was lost for words at such harshness. Can't even do housework properly, and you want to go to a wedding?
How selfish.
Oliver smirked, joining in with his parents.
Understood.
I replied weakly.
The drink's gone bad. Let's start over.
With that, they left the room. Tears dripped onto the bag I was packing. I didn't bother to wipe them away and focused on packing. Not just clothes, but also my parents' photo and other valuables went into the bag. Attending the wedding and seeing my sister's radiant face was overwhelming.
Sophia, congratulations.
As I spoke these words in the dressing room, my sister's expression changed instantly.
Big sis, what happened to you? You've lost so much weight. Are you okay?
My sister looked concerned.
Your complexion is really poor. Are you eating properly?
It's her big day, and I feel terrible for causing her worry. I try to force a smile, but my face contorts, and tears start to fall instead.
Just sit down for a minute. There's still time. Please, tell me what's been going on.
I told my sister everything that had happened.
That's just terrible. I've been told never to come back.
I wonder what I should do now. Should I return to that house and continue living as a housekeeper? I didn't want to go back, but felt like I had no choice.
Listen to me, sis. Listen carefully.
My sister said, looking into my eyes.
Don't go back to that house. Just because they're family, it doesn't give them the right to take away your freedom. But I have nowhere else to go. I have to go back to that house.
My sister took my hand.
It's okay. I'm here for you. I'll always stand by you and protect you.
After the wedding, my sister helped me find a new apartment, and I started a new life without returning to my in-laws. A week later, Oliver contacted me. I didn't want to answer, but he kept calling, so I reluctantly picked up.
Where are you? Come back already.
He shouted as soon as I answered. I was surprised for a moment, but I'm not the same person anymore. After talking a lot with my sister, I realized how abnormal my in-laws' house was. At first, I thought it was my fault for not being good at housework.
You're not the one at fault.
But my sister kept encouraging me.
I was told never to come back, so I won't be returning.
I could hear a click of the tongue over the phone.
Stop being insolent and come back to apologize to Mom.
I was amazed at how much he took Emma's side.
I don't want to come back. I can't take it anymore. You're living in our house without earning or even doing proper housework. Just come back now.
He hung up after that. But even living separately, the ties to my in-laws' house remained. To discuss a divorce, I went to my in-laws' house with my sister and her husband. The first thing I noticed was a foul smell when we entered. It smelled like rotting garbage that hadn't been taken out for days. Laundry was scattered everywhere, and the sink was overflowing with dishes. Had the house gotten this bad in just a few weeks? I was shocked at how different it was from when I lived there. We moved things around to make space to sit. Then, I spoke up.
I want a divorce. What? Don't joke around,
Oliver said, slamming his hand on the table.
It's true. You're complaining about having an incompetent wife living here, aren't you?
Both Oliver and Emma reacted angrily, unable to accept it. But I had made up my mind. I wouldn't run away anymore.
Just come back and do your housework. It's your fault the house is dirty.
They blamed me for the mess they made living there.
Please calm down.
My sister intervened.
Ava wants a divorce. And since she's been treated so harshly, we'll be requesting alimony in the divorce case.
Oliver and his parents were taken aback by the mention of alimony.
What are you talking about? We haven't done anything wrong.
They had no sense of guilt despite their mistreatment. Once again, I decided that I would definitely cut ties with these people.
No, based on what Ava has told us, we believe an alimony claim in the divorce case is justified.
Oliver, still in disbelief, shouted.
What? If you want alimony that badly, hire a lawyer or whatever. You probably don't have the money for it, but go ahead. We'll do whatever it takes for the case.
I wasn't scared of his threatening words.
Yes. That's exactly what we plan to do. I am Ava's representative, her lawyer.
At my sister's words, Oliver and his parents were lost for words.
My husband is also a lawyer, so the two of us will fight this with all our might.
Be prepared, okay?
What did you say? As for the legal fees, I couldn't possibly accept money for helping dear Ava, who has always been so kind to me.
My sister was methodically explaining while cornering him.
In preparation for the divorce case, we've reviewed Ava's diaries and emails. They will all be submitted as evidence. I heard about the incident with the beer being thrown at you. Is that true? That is...
She spoke calmly as a lawyer, but it was clear my sister was quite angry.
I understand Ava was also pushed by you. That was just me scolding her for not being able to mop properly.
Emma was increasingly becoming flustered.
Does scolding leave bruises? I was shocked to see the bruises when we met at the wedding. We immediately took her to the hospital for treatment, and of course, we have a medical report.
Emma seemed at a loss for words.
This evidence will also be submitted.
My sister and her husband listened to my story attentively, gathering all the evidence. I can't thank them enough.
How can you say that? Don't you feel any gratitude for living here for free?
Emma started yelling in anger.
Exactly. Do you know how much extra it costs just to have you here? Don't mess with me.
Oliver's harsh words made me realize how wrong this marriage was. Shall we continue?
We're recording this entire conversation, you know.
At my sister's words, Oliver and my in-laws were speechless. They didn't expect to be recorded. After that, they became quiet, unable to complain knowing they were being recorded.
Please be aware that any future calls or emails will also be used as evidence. If there is any stalking-like behavior, we will report it.
My sister is an excellent lawyer. Without her, I couldn't have separated or divorced.
You'll agree to the divorce, right? Mediation and legal fees can be quite expensive.
Oliver and the in-laws were whispering, but eventually seemed to agree.
Fine. I'll give you a divorce.
I had them sign the divorce papers before they could change their minds. While talking with my sister after separating, I suddenly wondered, why hadn't Oliver ever been on my side? When I asked her about it, she thought for a moment and then asked, "You know how men can have such fragile egos? Can you think of anything?" I couldn't think of anything in particular. Had I inadvertently hurt Oliver's pride without realizing it? As I pondered this, my sister suggested, "Try remembering things from before you got married." That made me recall something from before the proposal.
Now that you mention it, I remember getting scolded for bragging when I talked about college.
It was during a date, when we saw posters for various university open campuses aimed at high school students. One of them was for my alma mater, which I mentioned, causing him to become noticeably upset. Maybe it's an inferiority complex about education? He gets upset if someone seems superior. Were there other instances? He seemed like someone with high pride. I hadn't thought much of it, but now that I did, several things came to mind.
Actually, I earned a higher salary than him, but after we got married, he insisted I quit my job and become a housewife. Even when I said it's common for both spouses to work these days, he absolutely refused.
Yeah, it's definitely better for both spouses to work. I had doubts, but eventually, I got tired of arguing and quit my job. It was a job I loved and wanted to continue. He probably wanted to trap his wife, who had a higher education and income, at home. Watching you get harassed by your MIL probably satisfied his ego. If that was the reason I was hurt, it's truly sad. I could feel all the love I had left for Oliver disappearing without a trace.
You're ungrateful after we kindly let a poor person like you live here without earning anything.
Emma's sarcasm didn't stop.
Right. Without this house, you'd probably be homeless since you have no money. No need to worry, I have an inheritance left by my parents.
Oliver and the in-laws opened their eyes wide in surprise.
What? You hid that?
I never hid it. I couldn't even say I was using the inheritance to buy groceries, fearing they'd accuse me of stealing money.
So, include that money in the division of property then. Pay the security deposit for the divorce case, and we'll take the rest.
No, that's not how it works.
Property and inheritance before marriage don't enter into the division of property. Huh?
Oliver seemed to think he would get half of my inheritance after the divorce.
That's why only the property acquired after marriage is subject to division. Even as a housewife, I get half, so don't be mistaken. So I have to pay for the division of property and the security deposit for the divorce? That's what I'm saying.
At this, Oliver suddenly became panicked.
Hey, why don't we just keep living here? You won't have to pay rent or anything.
He started to hesitate about the divorce once he realized he'd have to pay. But I already had the divorce papers.
Absolutely not. You never once took my side, just treating me like a housekeeper. I never want to see your face again.
At my firm stance, Oliver had nothing more to say. The divorce went through smoothly, and Oliver had to pay the security deposit for the divorce case. Realizing he couldn't win against a skilled lawyer with all the evidence, he must have given up. After the divorce, Oliver apparently badmouthed me at his company.
I was just deceived. Glad to be rid of such a wicked wife.
He tried to justify himself.
I didn't want to pay the security deposit for the divorce case, but I had to. Eh? That means you did something bad enough to pay for a security deposit, right? That is.
He faltered when a colleague pointed it out.
I just kept her in line as my wife was getting too cocky.
Or,
I scared her with Mom because she was annoying.
that's what he seems to have said. His colleagues, hearing this,
Is Oliver's wife okay?
were worried. Once it was known why he had to pay the security deposit, his position at the company deteriorated. Oliver resigned from the company. With his pride, he probably couldn't stand the cold treatment from his colleagues. The in-laws, now without income, seemed to be living poorly. Oliver's salary wasn't high, and the money for groceries was always limited. I used to find cheap supermarkets and save with points to manage somehow. Without anyone to do housework, their house must be in a mess. Then, Oliver contacted me.
I can't make ends meet and have to sell the family home.
It's not my responsibility.
Can you help us out?
After everything, he still doesn't understand why I wouldn't help. Eventually, the family home was put up for sale. Now, Oliver and his parents live in a cheap apartment, blaming each other for their situation. To me, it's just desserts, but they can't seem to accept responsibility. As for me, I'm returning to the job I loved before marriage. My sister and her husband didn't want payment, but I insisted, to mark the end of it all. A fancy dinner as thanks didn't seem enough to express my gratitude.
Delicious.
My sister said, happily eating, making me happy too. That's why I said so. I'll always protect my sister. My sister was always there for me, on my side. Since I'm family, I want to be able to help you whenever you're in trouble.
I'm done with marriage.
What are you saying? I'm sure there's someone out there who will be on your side. Can someone like me, who had given up on marriage and children, find happiness again? Before, I had no freedom and couldn't hope for the future. But now, I want to walk my own path and reclaim my life. Got any plans for what you want to do? Thinking about it, I said.
First, I'll go buy some fancy socks.
What's that about? Laughing, we enjoyed the moment together.